So today I'm joined by Chris Cuadros. He works with anxiety through the nervous system and the body. He helps professionals, leaders, and athletes calm their nervous system so they can think clearly, feel steadily, and show up with confidence. So, Chris, if someone's listening and is constantly tense, overthinking, worn down, what are three simple ways that they could overcome anxiety?
Three simple ways. So, I mean, it really depends on what what's driving the stress that they're experiencing or the anxiety that they're experiencing. So I can give it a few different ways. I mean, I always love to look at how people are breathing, right? Because breathing plays a huge role. I'm sure you know this. Breathing plays a huge role in the way someone's nervous system operates. So, if they're breathing at a faster pace, or they're breathing shallow, or they're taking in more air than they should within a minute, or they have a dysfunctional breathing habit, which is it's said like it's like 70 to 80% of people that experience anxiety have a dysfunctional breathing habit. So if that baseline changes in the system, then they're going to be running into this sympathetic response quite a lot. Right, sympathetic response meaning fight or flight. So that's the first thing. Like breathing exercises are fantastic on a surface level, right? But if we're like diving in deeper to how the breath works and functional breathing for someone, that's where I'd probably start. Then on like the second level, once the nervous system's like a little bit more calm, we wanna work with the psychology of someone, right? And that could be, what their processes are in their mind or what patterns they're running to run the anxiety, right? The way the framework that I utilize works is think of anxiety as like a house, right? Or the roof of the house. And then we've got walls that hold up that anxiety. And those walls are like the sub processes or sub patterns that are helping it run. And then it's all on a foundation, right, as well. So that foundation isn't what we call like they're running anxiety. It's like an external locus of control. We want to shift that to an inner locus of control. So it means that they're taking responsibility or they're taking their control back. So that's like the second component. Three, like I've always started with hypnotherapy on this journey for like helping clients, and some people think it's magic. I've seen like kind of the magic stuff happen, but really I like to kind of broaden it to people to not be like the quick fix, but like brain entrainment, which is helping train in the alpha brainwave states, which are going to allow those calmer feelings or those calmer moments. So those would probably be the three things that I'd say is best.
Awesome, man. No, I love those. I think breath for me it's life changing. The
Mhm.
second one, could you develop a little bit more? Like what? How does the body operate with the locus? Can you repeat what you said? I, it's a
Yeah, sure.
technical term.
So think about it like this. It's like the you think on the foundation, so the foundational pillar, right? Or the foundation, the bottom of the anxiety pattern, we can think that there's things outside of our control, and that because we want to control these things, but we can't. Like you can't control worldly events, you can't control how people react. You can only control yourself. You can control your inner state. Yeah, like it can take time. Some people are better at it than others. Some people have a higher awareness, but it's all possible. And we're always not aiming for 100% success rate in life every day, right? Like it'd be nice if we could do that. Amazing. But there's going to be days where you feel 90% or 80%, right? It's just a matter of doing the thing over and over again until it gets ingrained. So the external locus of control, it is more like, okay, you think things that are outside of your control and you take them on your shoulders and you carry them around with you. Whereas if you're like on more on this element of inner locus of control, it's like the that you've got the inner control back. You're letting go of things that you can't control, and you're focusing on the things that you do control.
Yes, and it's probably multiple things. But
Of course, of
what do you
course.
usually see with clients when it comes to externalizing their circumstances and their power, what are the common themes that they normally
Yeah.
put control or try to control on, and actually they can't?
Yeah. So I can tell you in two ways. So let's say, someone I had a client once who was watching all the things that were going on in Palestine, right? And just constantly consuming like all the social media around it, posting the stories as well. And I'm like, for someone that's in anxiety, right? It's not ideal because you're adding stress to the system. Okay. Now, if you keep adding stress to the system at some point, like, it's like going into burnout for people as well. You can shift more into that state. It may be not beneficial. But when we talk about like someone having an inner state of control, in a locus of control, it's like they start to learn how to be able to control their bodies, control their physiology, control their mind on some level, right? Because usually what happens when people are experiencing anxiety, they feel like they're a slave or a victim to the thoughts that they're having, right? To the things that are going on in the body, like panic attacks, right? That level of impending doom, like they can't control it, it's just happening. But there's like elements which we can change over time, which start allowing the body to get back into balance with itself so that they don't experience that, or so that they can have a calmer mind, right? You can't, it's really hard to control your mind when you're really anxious or stressed, right? It's really hard. Like it's near impossible. It's like a lot of the time people want to try and think their way out of anxiety or like high levels of stress, but it's just not ideal. Yeah, sure, some people it can work, but like really getting into the physiology and the nervous system and getting that back into balance, that's where you want to start. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. And now let's go back to hypnotherapy. So tell me, how do you get started with hypnotherapy?
How did I get started with hypnotherapy? So it's probably better to tell you how I like started my kind of entrepreneurship journey. And that all started like I used to work in banks and insurance. And then I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I want to do something that I want to do, like, and then I was like, okay, well, what the hell's that? It's like, okay, I like helping people. That's one thing. I wanted to help people relieve stress and I loved training. So I was like, oh, I'll be a personal trainer. So I did that, and whilst in my own development with myself, I had a lot of clients saying to me like, the way you think, or the way your perspective is on life, it's like it's really interesting, and I really like how your mind works. And I started thinking, look, the physical component's great to work with people, but the mind's a big barrier, right? And even with people that were personal training clients, like you still need to do some mind work, right? Because once you kind of, put in the discipline with your system, or you're incorporating good habits within the mind, the body can follow as well, right? So then I started going, okay, cool. And that was the path. And then I went and like I did a lot of self-development. I did a plant medicine journey with ayahuasca, and I was like, I want to find like, my purpose. And then just I had synchronicities lined up that pushed me into like hypnotherapy and working with the subconscious. And in the beginning, it was more like the mystical components of it, and I never had like profoundly mystical experiences in the beginning with it, but I started to see like the change that could happen. Like, when you're training your mind over and over again, like your perspective changes or your perception changes, and it can happen on an unconscious level where it's constantly looking out for these things. Could be unconsciously, could be consciously. And that's how it kind of began. And I wanted to work like, with stress or make people feel better, or all these other things that you can do with hypnotherapy. But then I went through my own like darkness, right? Like my own dark night of the soul, where it was really horrible, really rough. And I got to experience what it was like for someone to have like really bad anxiety. And so that's how it kind of formed into the specializing in that place.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So
Mm.
you went through the deepest
Yeah.
anxiety, and this was asked when you were already becoming a coach. Like,
Yeah.
would do you mind sharing about that? Like, how
Yeah,
did that
sure.
happen?
When I was becoming a coach?
No, like
Yeah.
how that dark night of the soul
Oh,
episode.
yeah, sure. So I was probably like in the in between state. Like I was still training clients. I was also working doing Uber on the side to bring in some more cash flow. And I knew like my direction and which way I wanted to go. And I felt like a little bit stuck. Okay. And then what happens? I was at that point of like, okay, I'm jumping into these deeper elements of personal development, working with the subconscious, working with the mind, working with the body as well. And nothing was really sticking for me. And then I had a breakup with an ex, and it just sent me like really down, right? I was on a roller coaster of, like heightened anxiety and then like exhaustion, like no motivation. I remember I used to wake up and be like, "Oh, no, like, I wanna go back to the dream," because there was no anxiety in there. So I'd bounce between, like, high levels of anxiety or debilitating anxiety and a bit of depression, and then I started working with my own coach and mentor, and that was just basically hypnotherapy with the same institute that I studied with, and things started improving. My whole life started shifting, like, from that moment over the next I think it was 12 to 18 months, everything was just on an upward trajectory. Like my life changed. And then I started my business. I got more into coaching. Um, Clients came through. I was doing things that I'd always wanted to do in terms of like actions, because I feel that a lot of us are scared of taking the actions, scared of failing. And then I was just like, no, okay, what's the solution here? What's the action step? And that's how it pretty much began. And then yeah, it's been a journey, like, it's been an amazing journey, yeah.
Do you think that breakup was the trigger, or was that a combination of that and other
I think it was a combination of other factors, and that just tipped it over the edge, and it just pushed me further. Because like, once I feel that, you go through the grieving process, it's like you're starting to become a new version of yourself. It's like, people try to find themselves again from a breakup, right? And then that shifts into like, oh, well, what do I want to create here? At least for me, and some others that I've spoken to, it's you're becoming new. And it's like, what does that new version of myself look like? Because I already knew what I wanted like from previous years before, but I was just like, okay, there needs to be more action steps and less kind of, fear and or like feeling the fear and just going, okay, I just got to do it.
Mhm. You said just two things, right?
Yeah.
How can we lose fear,
How can we
or
lose?
not lose fear, but how can we do our dreams and complete what we want in life while being in fear? Is that also part of the hypnotherapy, or is that
Can
another?
be. It can be. Training your mind in a different way, like with hypnotherapy can work. Though usually like, certain fears that we have, if it's starting a business or, if it's other fears like, afraid of heights, there's obviously steps. Like we usually, I think the way that I explain it is we think of these things as like mountains, right? And these mountains are like the where we want to get to. We want to be on the top. But a lot of the time we want to be like, no, I want to get the helicopter all the way up the top. But unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. So what do? We just look down and we just take the first step. And that first step could be something so small, you know, for like starting a business. It could be, okay, well, what actual business would I like to do? Writing a list. Doesn't mean you have to go to the next step, but it's allowing people to just, bring it back down to those smaller steps. You would have heard like, that saying, you know, people tend to make mountains out of molehills, you know? And if we just make those mountains molehills in these situations, it's a process. It's a process for us to get there. A strategy that's in front of us to get to where we want to go. whether that's working with mentors, whether that's following a program of some sort. Yeah.
How important do you think it was to have that coach, that mentor in your life?
Oh, like, s- yeah, would never take it back, would never regret it. It changed my life, right? Like I was really stuck, and yeah, again, was in a dark place, though my whole life changed. I was working a job at that time, doing food distribution, right? So I worked as a business development manager, and I go into, all the cafes around Sydney, Australia, on the eastern suburbs and the city, and I would sell products or like get their orders in, and that was it. And because I was dealing with anxiety at that specific time, I was going on a roller coaster. Okay, and that roller coaster was sending me like debilitating anxiety, breaking down, back to, really sad, feeling really stuck, to really anxious again. Oh, okay, I feel comfort. No, back to, that's what it was. And I got into a point where I was like, okay, like I'm close to taking meds, and I was full against meds. I'm like all natural. I was like, I got to that point where I'm like, okay, well, if this doesn't heal or fix in the next 3 months, then I'm gonna have to take meds. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna gem that path. But before I did that, I got in contact with again, like something that came through synchronistically. The guy that was my mentor, who had trained in the place that I was going to train at, and it changed everything. Like everything, it just set me on the path to actions. To taking steps, to putting effort into myself and believing in myself. So yeah.
So, to someone that says, "No, I don't believe in hypnotherapy. I don't even understand what it is." Could you break it down so it's super
Yeah, sure.
fifth grader simple? What is hypnotherapy, and why should
So
why should you believe in it?
yeah, sure. So the way I would explain it in like simple terms, again, like I always use brain entrainment. Like think what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to, slow the brain waves down, okay, or relax the mind, okay. And once your mind is calmer, okay, or those lower brain waves are happening, or more prominent, like the theta brainwave, right? It means that we become more suggestible. Okay. Now, for an example, like from the ages of 1 to 7, like a lot of people know this one now, but from the ages of 1 to 7, we're really receptive. We're like sponges, right? And we're absorbing like, the experiences of the world around us, our parents, and how they act, their behaviors, our friends' behaviors, what happens at school, TV. Okay. And then it starts to shift and change after that. The other brainwaves start to become more prominent. Now, it's kind of the same melon. We become more susceptible in that lower brainwave state. Now, the subconscious for some people or for majority is it's like what it does is it takes what it wants. It like cherry picks what it likes and what it wants. And when it's associated with things that relate to someone, it's like that little blip or neural pathway kind of connects, and it creates like a thought pattern for someone. Okay, that's probably the best way I could explain it. Does that make sense? The other way to add on to that is like think about if you're doing it over and over again, right? You're working that mental muscle,
Yeah, like
right?
going
And
to the
then
gym, but for the brain.
exactly. Now, when we think about how we think of something over and over again, we have something called the reticular activation system, right? So that's like when we think about something over and over again, we're going to be have more perception for those things coming through in our reality, right? A fantastic example is like if you've bought a car before and you've been really excited about this car, and then you start seeing this car everywhere. It's like you've programmed your mind to look for that. And that's the thing, like, probably the best way to explain it is like we're aiming to program our mind, you know? again, like the magical thinking of it that some people have, it's like, okay, I'm going to do a hypnotherapy for $1 million, and not do anything. Like the chances of that happening, very rare, right? But if you listen to something that's like a hypnotherapy and like make $1 million, but you're taking actions towards it, it's kind of joining it together. Yeah,
And are we being hypnotized without our consent? Like, there's this whole thing around the media. Are we being
100%.
hypnotized, or how do we get hypnotized without our consent?
I'd say so. I mean, like you ever watch like a TV show or a movie and you get really emotional? Like I'm a sucker for some movies, like you know. So or like fantastic ones is Stranger Things, right? Stranger Things just finished. It's like emotional at the end. It's like, oh, it's an end of an era. Like that's gone. Like you get so drawn in. Like that's hypnosis. You're believing that is real. That's not actually happening. That's a story. It's the same way. And like we hypnotize ourselves, right? When we have anxiety, like we're creating the stories and we're believing the stories. So same thing when it comes to like the news. Yeah, like 100%. You know, the news when like the news is like more often negative than positive, right? So then again, like it could be that we're programming ourselves to look for the negative, but at the same time, our brain works like that as well, right? Where we're programmed to focus more on the negative because we want to be able to survive. It takes like 7 positives to outweigh 1 negative. So yeah, long-winded answer, but yeah, I think we're being programmed 100%.
How do we prevent that from happening then?
How do we prevent that? I think developing awareness. Developing awareness within ourselves, that's a major key because, you have something like I know the research has changed, but it's like 12,000 to 50,000 thoughts in a day. How many of those thoughts are you actually like fully aware of? How many do you let go of? There's this distinction mechanism within like everyone to be like, okay, keep that thought, keep that, let that one go. And a lot of the time that's unconscious. But I really think like, utilizing something like breath, meditation, hypnotherapy, to just take that moment to be aware, even what is it? Like interoception, if you've ever heard of that. It's like, getting in touch, the feeling of the body. Yoga Nidra is a good one as well. Like all those things that are enabling us to build that connection with our system, with the way that we feel, with our emotions, that can essentially help us.
Hmm. Okay. So it's bringing the awareness, right?
Mm.
And you mentioned breath twice. You said that breath work, like as a practice, is not as effective as functional breathing. Could you explain a little bit more about the difference?
No, I'd say like the functional breathing is more like getting the system to breathe at a correct way for its metabolic needs. And for some people, what happens, especially people with anxiety, is they can change their baseline over a period of time. Okay. And that could be from high levels of stress, that could be from trauma, that could be from food, that could be from caffeine, that could be from alcohol, drugs, etc. over time. And it's better for us to get the system back into a functional breathing state so it can meet the demands of what the body needs. Okay. When we talk about, moving into like more breathing exercise and breathing techniques, it's good to have an understanding about like why they work, how they work, etc. But I think that people people look for the quick fix, right? And like a breathing technique for someone, they might look it up online and they might go, okay, I'm going to do this. And they do it for 2 minutes and they be like, oh, it's not working. And they give up. But again, that's a muscle as well. Like the physiology needs to be shifted, right? Some people choose to do like Wim Hof breathing, which is fantastic. It's like a bit of an activation breath. But they still could have like their baseline could be off or lower than what the functional rate is.
And what is a functional rate? Like, how should someone breathe properly?
So, yeah, how would I answer this question? So, Okay, when someone is not like at the functional breathing like norm, which is like what we call the BOLD score. Okay, so it's like breathing oxygen level test, right? That's the score. So if that is sitting at about 25, that means like we're in a functional state. We don't have to adjust it from there. But if we're lower than that, usually what's happening is the balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide can shift in the body. That's where the baseline shifts. When we have less carbon dioxide or tolerance to carbon dioxide within the system, what's happening is it can close up like the airways a little bit, or it can make our blood cells or the hemoglobin just grasp onto the oxygen when it travels through the system. So we're not getting as much oxygen as we need. And then the other element of it is like the carbon dioxide helps, stimulate the vagus nerve as well. So that's like the functional breathing side of things. How do we change that? Yeah, like, implementing functional breathing retraining, which takes time, you know, to reach that level of the BOLT score of 25.
Does that have something to do with nose breathing versus mouth breathing?
Yeah, 100%. So like the way that we breathe, right? We get a lot more benefits from nose breathing. Nose breathing is like one of the elements in what we want to focus on if we're implementing functional breathing, right? If we're nasally breathing, what's happening is we have this paranasal cavity, I think it's called, memory blank, paranasal cavity. Now what happens is it releases more um, nitric oxide within the system. It's like up to about 25% more. And nitric oxide's got a range of benefits for the system. Okay. When we mouth breathe, what happens is it's usually that we're breathing a lot more shallow, right, into the upper chest. Nasal breathing allows us to get deeper. It allows the diaphragm to start activating. Okay. But if we're mouth breathing all the time, one, we're losing the element of being able to get, the benefit of the nasal nitric oxide, and we're essentially putting the system more into like that sympathetic response, because what's happening is we could be breathing a lot more, and if we breathe a lot more we go into over breathing, or you can kind of call it hyperventilation in some way. And then that again, like that puts the system into a sympathetic response. The brain's always spying on the breath, right? So it's like, okay, like something's wrong here. Like, the breathing's shifted and changed, or there's a lot more air coming in. I better like act. I better, use flight to run away, or I better fight my way out of this.
And I think that also affects sleep and anxiety. Like
100%.
you're going to get more anxious
Yeah.
by
Yeah, you're wired.
themselves. So and you said something else that before around interoception, right? How do we could you define what interoception is again, and how
Yeah,
do we
sure.
train it?
So interoception is like us having the ability to connect with what we're feeling in our body. That's probably the simplest way to explain it. Okay. How do we train that? I mean, a couple of ways. The if if you really kind of want to train it in, you're you're taking time for yourself to essentially, some people like to do a body scan. Some people just like to, focus on the breathing, how the breathing feels, how the different parts of the body feel, if they can feel their heartbeat, if they can feel like tension in part of the body. It's like moving your awareness within your body system to be able to like start to connect to a lot more. A lot of people, right, will push through things in life. Like a lot, we like to be high performance. So, when like think about when people eat, a lot of the time, especially when people have anxiety, they're not checking in like, how's my digestion? Do I feel bloated? Do I feel this? It's like we've lost that connection on those deep levels to know what we're feeling. And it's just about, you know, giving yourself the time, whether it's mindfulness, again, back into some type of meditation. I usually give my clients like an interoception meditation, or resource that helps them like develop that skill. And then it's yeah, having the awareness around it. Journaling's really good to be able to do it. It's really just stopping and smelling the roses, if you want to put it that way. Or just, yeah, stopping and giving yourself that moment of presence.
And it becomes so hard right now to stop. There's people that yes, they even work remote, but think it takes more time now even to do the things, and they end up working and they're eating while they're working,
Exactly.
so they're not even present
Exactly.
on those two. So, and I think
Exactly.
that creates anxiety.
100%. Well, think about it like this, right? Like if we talk about stress, if you're working and you're eating, your body is not like absorbing the nutrients as well as it could because it's in a bit of stress, right? Even something as simple as like, okay, giving yourself 5 minutes before you eat, especially like getting away from the work, 5 minutes before you eat, just to settle your body, calm it down, relax, even just look out the window and do nothing for 5 minutes. No one does that anymore. And then, okay, then like using mindful eating. I'm still working on mindful eating, right? Like it's hard because it's an unconscious program that's like, get it in, rush, because I could do the next thing. But if we're like slowing down that process, we're giving our body like the best way to absorb all the nutrients that we need and to not go into more stress. So like really, really I like to think about it like this. You know, what I do is everyone's a Ferrari, like their body is a Ferrari, and most of us just we kind of know how to drive, but we don't know how the Ferrari works, right? It's like my goal is to teach someone how the Ferrari works, so they don't essentially need me in the future, or they don't need a mechanic, right? I guess you could call me the mechanic in this instance. They just they just know, okay, like I know what's happening with my system. This is what I need. And the nervous system, like once you're really in tune with it, I'm feeling frustrated now. Frustration is like a nervous system response. I'm feeling angry right now. Oh, okay, that's a nervous system response, right? It's so integrated into our life, yet we don't put like an importance on it.
It's the body's telling you a lot of things, but you don't have time to listen, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a
how can you even listen to someone else outside of yourself if you cannot even listen to yourself?
yeah, exactly. But the thing, I think that the problem is people think that it's like that mountain metaphor again, right? They think it's like a lot of work. I'm like, if you spend 5 minutes 3 times a day just doing that, you do a hell of a lot more than doing like one hour a week. Like a hell of a lot more because it's the consistency that really enables it to start shifting, right? Again, like it's training.
And for someone that says, okay, like I want to start changing, but as how much time is it actually gonna take?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
how much time did it take you from being in deep, dark anxiety, depression to now being okay? Like, oh, okay, now I know how to drive my Ferrari.
Yeah. So I mean, like at a base level, for me, I was probably doing an hour with my maybe a bit longer with my mentor coach, all the way back then, and maybe 20 minutes a day, probably around that, maybe twice a day, 20 minutes twice a day. But I think just, yeah, 20 minutes a day is like pretty solid. It depends. Like you can go higher than that with yourself. It depends how much you want to put in and give back to yourself. And removing that, like, "Oh, I just got to get it done, right? That takes away from it because if you make it a chore, then yeah, it's not like you're doing it for that purpose of like looking at the end goal, So yeah, but it depends on also like what someone's working on, right? Anxiety, yeah, I say, most of my clients I'll take through like we'll do anywhere from like a 60 to 90-minute session, and I'll give them some resources or tasks to do in between, and it can be anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes a day. Twice a day is better, right? 3 times is even better than that. it just depends on the individual, but, everyone gets results as long as they're consistent. But if it's like you only do once, then you only get what you put into it, right? Yeah.
And if if you, how important would you say in 2026 is learning how to drive this Ferrari? Because again, we see the mental health struggle, we can
Mm,
see a physical health. Like there's 40% of people who are overweight in the US, let's not
yeah,
say all over the world.
yeah,
And I think many of these happens that are from the mental thing.
yeah. It's an epidemic of mental health, of anxiety, of stress. So, I mean, the way I kinda look at that is with this integration of AI is fantastic, right? Like, I'm sure on some levels it helps us manage stress a bit more because it's like, okay, I can just do that through AI and makes it a little bit easier. But that means that everything's speeding up again, right? And the more, if we keep speeding up, like it's it's like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I can, if AI can help us, right, and give us back time, then it's like, yeah, I can do more now. Like I can do more. I can fit in more now. You know, that's the thing. I think that's the challenge that we've got. Hopefully it doesn't turn out that way and it gives us back a lot more time to be creative. I think it's important today more than ever because yeah, we see the epidemic in anxiety and stress, in people not understanding how their system works, in like the old paradigm of thinking with, like doctors or psychologists. Not all of them, and I'm not bagging them out, but like the old way of thinking where it's, you get told you have anxiety or high levels of stress, and it's like you just need to take a deep breath. For some people, taking a deep breath like is not enough, right? For some people, taking a deep breath actually leads them into having more of a panic attack. So it's important.
Think you took two points really, really powerful, right? It's not gonna be an easy fix. And they need to fit it all in, right? I'm an obsessive person with my calendar, right? So how can I get things off my plate? How can I learn to do nothing?
That you have to train that in, right? Like, I mean, the same thing is in saying like it's good to be good with your calendar, right? It's good to have structure. I think for like anxious people as well, like structure is really important. And it drives you in a direction. Like it helps things line up for you in a way where a process. But if you like want to train in how to do nothing, man, just start like 5 minutes a day. Don't look at the phone, no Netflix, no nothing. Just look at the clouds, right? Think about like this, right? Other than sleeping, how often do you let your mind just sit and process, right? 5 minutes is enough. Just let it have a break and just process what it's gonna process. Even better if you know, 30 minutes and you're just sitting there watching the clouds or people watching, you know? Sure, you can be thinking about, like, things like work or anything like that, but it's more about going into that observation mode, right? It's kinda like a meditation within itself, really, but you're just focusing on the external aspects, clouds, people, instead of, "Okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Okay, I've got to do that, and then I'm gonna do this, and then, I've gotta what am I having for dinner? No, no, just chill, just 5 minutes. It's enough." You get surprised with the thoughts that you have as well, like, it's random, I was doing it the other day, I was, like, had 30 minutes, I'm just thinking. And the trail that I went on, I started somewhere where it's like, "Oh, I haven't done this in a while," and it's like, I go on an adventure in my mind about, what could be possible for the future? Where do I want to go? Like, oh, and I could do that. And there's no pressure. There's no pressure in that moment of nothing or presence.
Yes, and it's also difficult. And I imagine that you have clients like this who are always go, 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 go,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
I cook and I do breakfast with my podcast on. That is like always being on, and I've tried like here and there, like just go walking back to my house without a podcast. All right. So it's probably, and the more time, the more we go into AI and the more even
Yeah.
we have things thinking for us. I think we
Mm,
need to think even more to
yeah.
create our own sermons. Because
Yeah.
if not, we're just going to outsource our brains into GPT and have our
Yeah, exactly.
lives be centralized by
Exactly.
OpenAI and other companies.
Yeah, exactly. That's the worry, right? It's like, okay, if we like, how do we implement it properly? You know, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, if we're utilizing it in a way where it's like, okay, I can delegate that, and then I'm giving myself time to think and get creative, right? It obviously should never be used as a tool just to fix everything, but it should be like that. Yeah, you would have heard of this, like that 80-20 rule. You know, putting my 20% in, it can use 80%, and then maybe I make a little bit of adjustments as well. But it also it can help creativity, right? It can help bring out those ideas. Like I do think it's fantastic for content. You know, like I brought a video out recently, and it had spit out the content, but I put all myself in that. I'm like, okay, like it didn't give me the ideas about how the scenes were going to be. I was just like, okay, and me and my partner were just like how what we're going to do next is this, and what we're going to do next is that, and like, that was fun. Like it was so much fun. Allowed us to connect as well. I think that's the way it should be utilized.
Yeah, it's an enhancer, not a
Exactly.
replacement,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So outside of this realm, like what are other things that you do and value that keep you right now from going into anxiety, going into worry, going into depression? What do you constantly do to keep yourself at this level?
So yeah, I mean, like all the things for the body, like that I can do. Like I'm at gym 4 times a week. I used to walk like daily for an hour. I don't do that here because my girlfriend's a bit worried about me going out in the morning because it's in Colombia, it can be dangerous, or South America is like a little bit dangerous more than Australia for a place. Um, but I also, I do things that are like good habits for my mind. Like instead of walking, like I'm reading in the morning, or I'm improving my Spanish. Where we're eating healthy, right? If you eat too much crap, like your body's going to feel like crap, and that can cause inflammation. Inflammation can cause anxiety, depression, etc. Right? I'm taking time from. I'm always good with my breath. Like if I feel myself getting stressed or overwhelmed or something, yeah, like I take a moment to calm the system down. It's so much easier. Like once you've done the nervous system work and kept it consistent for a long period of time, it's so much easier for the body just to go back into listening. Right. So it's like, okay, I feel this, and then you give it like 5 minutes. But in the beginning, if someone's like debilitating anxiety, it may take longer than that. Right. What else? What else do I do? Every now and again, I'm trying to incorporate this a lot more this year. I do like a solid deep breath work session, like transformational breath work session with myself, and that's like for an hour, right? And that's like a pressure valve release, right? That's usually from that, like maybe I can have like a memory pop up or something that's being processed or released, but you feel lighter, you feel more clarity. And that's like a nervous system reset. That's what I love leading people to. And then what else? Like taking time to do nothing, to stare at the sky. Um, I'm trying to like this year, like I said to my partner and I'm like, okay, like let's try and turn the TV off at 10. Not just consume Netflix all the time. Let's connect. Like that also helps. Connection's key for people, whether it's social, whether it's in a relationship. It's a key, to make you feel good. Can getting good sleep, yeah, that's definitely one. That's probably, yeah, I'd say the main elements that I would input into my life.
So it will be sleep, exercise, nutrition, walking, reading. That that transformation, that is something that you lead clients through, right? That
Essentially, yeah.
hour transformation session.
Essentially, so it's dependent on them as well. Depending on what their life looks like. That's how I'd create a program for them.
How do you usually run it for yourself though? What does that hour include?
For like for me in a session with someone,
No, with yourself.
with myself, like in
That life,
breathwork.
yes, that breathwork session, the pressure valve that you said.
Yeah, the pressure valve. Yeah, that's like just pretty much circular breathing. There's so many different ways you can do it. Like there's so many different things it's called. It's called soma breath, rebirthing, activation breath, hypno breath work, somatic breath, 9D breath. Like it all leads to the same place, right? And that is like what we're doing is we're breathing like pretty hardcore for about an hour. So, in and out through the mouth, or you can do no, that's irrelevant really. You're getting to the same place, right? And that puts the system into this state. It's challenging, yes, but at the other side, like it's it's beautiful. So I'll put on like, some music, and that's what I'll do. I'll do it for an hour. If, one of my mentors that I learned, that specific stuff with, I put on one of his tracks and just dive in.
Nice.
It's full power. I love it. I love it.
And can you go back into the plant medicine?
Yeah.
You did plant medicine. You did a couple of different disciplines. What did you like or didn't like about them?
Ah, okay. I'll go into plant medicine with this because it like, yeah, it's full power. I'd be probably at around about 16, 17 ayahuasca sessions now. The thing that I love about that is that it's very heart opening. And what I mean by that, it kind of clears away, is the best way to put it, all the gunk that's around your heart that stops you maybe from being more of yourself, right? And allows you to feel more connected to the earth or to nature, to less of the things that are kind of like man-made. Like whenever I do plant medicine and ayahuasca specifically, I'd come back from the weekend and I just hate looking at my phone. I could hate it look different. I just don't want to look at it. Don't even want to be like, having the phone here. It just feels unnatural. And yeah, I think over the years, like it's allowed me more to bring out that authentic self within me, or that expressive self. That's probably a better way to put it. The one that wants to share, himself and serve and share music and song and those beautiful elements. The bad things about that, like, yeah, it can be full on. Like, it's not easy. Like, you're going through a planned dark night of the soul as well. It's hot. It's uncomfortable. You feel like you're intoxicated. You're purging, and it can be going to the toilet, can be spewing, can be burping, yawning, farting, right? Like, yeah, that's not a fun part. You can get stuck in mental loops, which happened to me once. It's not fun, but you put your hand up and get help and move out of that. I'd say that's probably one of my biggest like openers. Done a range of other plant medicines, but that's been full power. Other disciplines. What are other disciplines that I've done other than I've said? Like I've tried different things out, like I used to meditate like daily, like consistently, but I shifted that into more breath, or hypnotherapy. Just feel it's like, hypnotherapy is like guided meditation with a goal in mind. And meditation can just be about like maybe mindfulness or calming down, which is pretty much the same thing. Yeah, I don't know what other disciplines I've done. This would definitely be a high level.
And n- what do you think hypnotherapy is missing in a way? Like because you've mixed it with with other disciplines and with
Yeah.
other parts.
So, I mean, the the beautiful thing is like incorporating hypnotherapy with breath, right? Especially like the deeper breathwork sessions, because you're like when you go through like the deeper transformational breath, right? It's like your prefrontal cortex is essentially like kind of turning off. It's it's like it was the last one to develop, so it's the first one that kind of turns off. And we get back into the limbic system, and that's like where we plant the seeds, which is, what I think is missing in hypnotherapy. At the same time, like most people look and see what they see on TV or movies, and they're like, oh, like, bang, click of the fingers or flick of a switch. If there was a deeper understanding about how it works, about like, how to program your mind or the reticular activation system, then I think more people would be open to it. But I think there's this stigma like that it's mind control or, you know, people don't believe in it, because like how can someone just but that's not happening.
Okay. If you if you could go back to Chris when he was in that middle of that depression, what would you tell him, or
Ooh.
how would you work with him?
I mean, it would probably be just what I did, like, just take a step forward, investing in myself back then, like, I had a lot of trouble, like, letting go of money, like to save money. And I was like, okay, like, it was the first time, like, I invested in myself in that way, like, in a substantial, or what I thought back then was a substantial amount, you know? So I would say just jump in. Like if you want to change, you have to invest in yourself, right? Whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's something else, it's an investment. You really need to change that idea of what you're putting into yourself. I think that's probably the idea that I'd implement into him back then. It's like invest in yourself. You're worth it, right? Like you deserve it. You're worth it. Like, you know, I've always was good natured, like, always wanted to do good in the world. And, a lot of my friends would always be like, "Oh, like, you got great advice or you're a good person," whatever. But, like, when you're going through that, those things don't count. It's like, well, I have to make them count to be like, "No, I'm gonna invest in myself because, yeah, I'm worth it. I'm good enough to move forward." Yeah,
Beautiful,
that's a
man.
good question.
Now, something came up around belief. Where can your belief increase this year?
Ooh, where can my belief increase this year? Thing is, like, I feel like it's already happening, like being here in Colombia, like, has taught me, how lucky I am to live in a beautiful country, and to be able to do what I'm doing and to be able to take my business away. Though I had a lot of things on my to-do list, and being here has like allowed me to like, tick over things. Like I've gotten so many things on my to-do list done, it's crazy. And it's just allowing like all these little parts of my business to expand. So I think it would be, you know, keep taking the actions. Don't don't be don't be hard on yourself if you miss something for the day, you know. Um and just keep 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 taking the actions, keep going for what I've got planned. There's a lot planned, you know. Jump in, get uncomfortable again. Like, it's stretching. I always say like, you know, a lot of the time what we're doing is we're aiming to stretch the rubber band, right? Like wear the rubber band and you got to stretch it, right? Over time it gets bigger and bigger, right? But if you like, okay, like I'm just gonna jump in and do everything all at once, snap. No, you
Yeah,
know, slow and steady.
slow and steady. There we go,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and how can people work with you?
So they can find me a couple of different ways. Probably the best way at the moment is on Instagram, which is chrisquadros.as for anxiety specialist. Otherwise, my website is chrisquadros.com. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And what was your other question?
Yeah, how can they work with you?
So the first step is really jumping onto a call. And that's me finding out like what you're specifically dealing with. if I feel that I can help, and then, I tell you what the next steps are. That's really it.
That's awesome. And yeah, to make it really super practical, if you were to say one last thing to the person that's feeling anxiety right now, what's that one step that they can take today?
Slow down. Slow down, slow your breath down, and, you know, focus on moving forward with yourself. No giving up, just moving forward, like one day at a time, one step at a time. That's really key. Not pressuring yourself to be, up at the top of the mountain. Like the helicopter's not coming, slow and steady, like you've got this.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure,
Excited
brother.
to meet you soon in the future.
Yeah,
Let's see where we go.
100%. 100%. Love it.
Bye.